Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video, and today I've got the RUIKE Knives P108 SF. Now, there's a bit of a story behind this knife, and if you're not familiar with RUIKE knives, I wasn't either. A few of you guys, as viewers, asked me questions. There was a while there where I kept getting quite a number of questions, both here on YouTube as well as on Instagram, saying, what's the story with these RUIKE knives? A number of people sent me the link to Warriors and Wonders, where there's a few models of RUIKE knives for sale. And so I went over there and checked them out, and I looked through the models, and ultimately I sent an email to RUIKE Knives Canada, and they graciously supplied a few knives that I could check out and review so that I could share with you guys my thoughts on those models in particular. But I would feel confident to even extend that and say the level of quality and consistency seems to be pretty good across the board with these guys. So maybe you don't like the particular model that I'm sharing with you, but there's another model that you appreciate more, and I think you'll be pretty pleased. Another example, a knife that's similar to this but maybe a little more popular, is the P801. That knife's just a little smaller than I like, so this one being 8 1/4 inches was a little more appealing to me. So let's go ahead and get into the review of what I'm going to call a very well-built budget frame lock, stainless steel of course. Beginning with size and weight. So 8 1/4 inches overall, as I mentioned a second ago, 4 3/4 inch handle. One thing I will say about this knife is it's pretty slim in pocket, so 4 3/4 inches when it's closed, 3 1/2 inch blade. And for weight on this, stainless steel frame locks tend to be notoriously heavy. This guy comes in at 4.2 ounces, which is pretty nice. Obviously it's heavier than something that was, all done in FRN or G10 or something like that, but they have actually pretty aggressively, see if I can show you here. Oh yeah, you can see it good there. See how they've milled out the handles on both sides, by the way, which is nice to see, to save some weight. And so they've done a really good job of getting this down to a weight that's pretty comfortable, making this a knife that carries in a way that you really don't even know you're carrying a knife. Starting off with the blade in terms of features, we have a very slim blade with that nice top swedge. It almost gives the illusion that this is like a Persian style sort of, trailing point, but in fact it's really just a standard blade shape. This is perfectly flat. Nice and thin. Now, one challenge that sometimes comes with a really thin blade is, there's not enough distance to get a good thin grind behind, or a good thin edge here, because this grind just doesn't have enough distance, but this is really well done. This is nice and thin. 14C28N is pretty well my favorite budget steel. My experience has been that it performs much better than, the AUS8s or the 8CR13 MOV. I don't know why I couldn't think of that right then. It really gets nearly to the level of like VG10 and 154CM. It's a really good budget steel. Now it's not going to be, it's not mind-blowingly amazing, but for the price point, it's going to perform very well. Okay, nice satin finish on the blade, which I do appreciate. And you've sort of got this bit of belly here. Now notice it's a very fine tip, okay? And that would be maybe, for some people, a bit of a drawback. It is gonna, I wouldn't want to drop this on the concrete or anything like that. There's a good chance of breaking the tip off, but that's true of a whole lot of knives that are out there. So in terms of blade shape, blade use, functionality, this is a great knife. There's lots of edge there per size of knife. 3 1/2 inches for a knife that's only 4 3/4 overall. So I've got to say that the blade, even though it's a little thin, it doesn't allow for as much belly as I usually like, is very, very functional and is going to work great as your typical EDC blade, opening packages, cutting fruit, whatever else you may have to do with it. This blade is going to do quite well. Lockup and deployment on this guy is, of course, you've already noticed that it's a stainless steel frame lock. It does have this secondary lock that literally I don't use. It just sits there. So essentially for me it's a design element rather than a functional element. And that's usually the way I feel about secondary locks. The tension on the lock bar is set really well, so that it's comfortable. There's a little bit of jimping here, which is not too sharp. It just grabs your finger enough that you can get the lock to actuate pretty easily and comfortably. It is on a ball bearing pivot, which means it functions really, really well. Really good detent, and again, we've had this discussion lots of times before, but my measurement of detent is when I flip the knife, right, does it reliably flip out? And this actually does a little better than that. When this detent breaks, it actually flips out with a good amount of authority, which is appreciated. So they've done a good job on the detent. It is a ball bearing pivot, which is nice at this price point. Not necessary, but certainly nice. And the lockup is pretty, well, not pretty, it's very solid. So that's one of the things at this price point. Flippers aren't always amazing, and I've had a few budget flippers that don't flip all that well. Certainly that's not the case with this one. It works really, really well and locks up nice and securely. In terms of the handle, you've got stainless steel with a stonewash on it, and the stonewash finish does create a bit of texturing so that you get a little more retention. The one thing I will say about this handle is it's a little odd for me. This side looks very sort of minimalist and just kind of this cool sort of design where, you know, they've kind of tried to make this a very classy knife. If you flip it over, it gets a little busy on this side. So it somehow feels like there's a bit of a disconnect between the two sides. This side obviously has a whole lot going on, this button on the pocket clip. I'm sure not everyone will like that. I'm not sure, but it may be possible that this clip could be switched out with the clip on the P801. I'm not 100% sure of that, but it certainly would simplify this a little bit. And if you're not a huge fan of that button, I don't know what else to call it other than a button, that might be a solution for you. It is a deep carry clip. It goes in and out of pocket really well. I'm just not exactly sure about how I feel on the aesthetics of it. In hand, very comfortable, not super hand filling. It's a pretty slim design, sort of puts me in mind of something like the Benchmade 940 knives of that sort of ilk, where the handle is very slim and small. And it's a very Quaken style blade where the blade just disappears into the handle, which does make it really slim. But I know not everyone is going to be into that. In terms of being hand filling, it's not super hand filling, but it is pretty comfortable. I would appreciate some jimping right back here. There's nothing, and it does feel, my thumb just does not feel very secure. Overall, yeah, I feel really confident when I'm holding the knife. I'm not going to drop it or lose it, or my hand's not going to ride up onto the blade or anything. But there's not much going on for my thumb back here, and I would have appreciated something by way of some jimping or a spot, even if this swedge was just extended out this way a little bit to give me a flat portion of blade that I could put my thumb on. It would have been appreciated. Again, there are a lot of knives that don't do that, but I tend to notice when they do. Well, and in fact, in this case, I'm noticing when they don't. I do prefer a little spot for my thumb or something to kind of secure it just a little. Overall, well-constructed handle. Now, I should have mentioned aluminum backspacer here, and it's a full backspacer. Some of the advertising on these guys shows this as blue, and I actually feel like that would have tied the knife together a little bit nicer. But it's black, and they're all black, so you're not going to get a blue one. It was just a mistake in the marketing material that they put out. Let's go ahead now and get to some comparisons. This is a knife that I think competes really, really well. It's well built, reasonably well priced. So let's go ahead and get some knives out that maybe are similar, at least in price point. Here is a real steel knife. This is the H6 Elegance, of course. Probably most of you are familiar with it. Obviously a little bit different. Around the same price point. This is going to be G10 with a liner lock. Same steel though, 14C28N. Similar size. This one's a little heavier, which is going to be a small point of detraction for it, but it's going to be a little more hand filling for you, and it does have that jimping on the back spine. So that may be a determining factor for you. Let's go ahead and grab another budget flipper. This is the new for this year, CRKT Hijinks. I guess this is sort of a reissuing of the original model. And this is an example of a budget flipper that does not flip as well as this one, okay? It flips, but I've got to be pretty intentional about it to get it to flip consistently, and I'll mention that in the full review of this knife, but I think it's a fair comparison. They're priced similarly. Of course, the steel on the RUIKE knife is much, much better. I would say that the steel on this is, you know what, in my own testing, it's been comparable to HCR13 MOV, and it's holding up okay. I'll again have more to say about that in the full review. What else have we got here? Hard to talk about any budget knife without at least bringing out a Rat Model 1. This one happens to be in D2, which is going to be a better steel, but the design is of course quite different. So someone who finds this knife really appealing, maybe they don't like the Rat 1 at all. There are quite a few differences to this, other than, you know, the Rat 1 is a very good budget knife, and a lot of people are familiar with it, so it should give you an idea of what you're getting in terms of size. Okay, notice the blade length is about the same, just the handle is a bit bigger, and people have mentioned that the Rat 1 doesn't have the greatest blade to handle ratio. What else have I got here? Here is the Charade recently reviewed SCH 503, and this is an example where it really kind of shows what can be done for this kind of money. You know, this knife, aluminum handles, stainless steel liners, very heavy. The steel, the blade steel is not as good. This is Aussate steel, but this knife actually costs more than this one, and I would say that's not a great place to be in terms of price point. At least in Canada, they cost more. These are a little more budget friendly in the US. Anyway, wanted to bring that in because it does make a good point about, you know, here's two overseas made knives. One is exceptional and one is just okay. All right. One more knife here for you. This is, of course, the new for this year, 2017 Spyderco Polestar. Fairly similar in terms of weight. In fact, the Polestar is a little thinner. The blade is going to be less. Notice that there's quite a bit more cutting edge on the rake. But if you're wanting something that's a little more hand-filling, that has the G10 handle, now and the blade steel, they're going to be comparable. Maybe the BD1 is marginally better, but not a whole lot. Lots of people would compare BD1 to VG10, and so, you know, maybe a slight step up in terms of the steel there. So a few different comparisons there for you. By the way, the Spyderco, at least especially in Canada, is going to cost a good amount more. In the US, I think these go for $60 and these go for $40. So there's a question of value there, and certainly the rake is delivering a whole lot of value as we consider those other comparisons. I think that becomes more and more clear. Overall, guys, I think this is a very well-made knife, certainly at the price point, which is, you know, around 50 bucks Canadian, probably more like 40 in the US. You've got a very good, very well-built budget knife here, and if you're looking for something on a budget that's going to be really, really nice and give you, you know, an action and a level of quality that really reaches to, you know, what you might get in more like $100 or more than $100 knife, this is going to be a really good option. Obviously, the stainless steel and the blade steel are going to be some compromises, but otherwise, construction and performance are very comparable to much more expensive knives. So I think they've done a great job. The only thing I would say about this knife, I think the design is very distinctive, and the danger of a very distinctive design is not everyone's going to love it. So that said, if you do like this design, or if you like another design from RUIKE, as I said, the 801, which you can check out on their website, which is linked in the description, may be another option that's maybe a little more appealing to you. Yeah. Recommended, absolutely. Is the quality there? No question, it is. The blade steel, certainly I'm a fan of 14C28N because of you know, because of its fairly budget price point, and it's better than price point performance. Yeah, so do I recommend this knife? Definitely recommended. Of course, if you like the design. There may be some of you out there watching who just are not into this design, and so of course, you know, yeah, don't buy it. But if you think, hey, that's a cool knife, and I was thinking of buying one but wasn't sure on the quality or whatever because it's a new company, I don't think you need to hesitate with this model or any other from RUIKE Knives. Hope you enjoyed the video, and oh yeah, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and we will talk to you soon.